Choose Your Legend 7 is finally here, and you know what that means. Gullveig, Soren, Robin, and Corrin will be getting new Brave versions. In this video, I'll be analyzing their weapons, skills, best roles, and best game modes, as well as going over all the new info revealed in the Fate channel. Okay, let's start off with Brave Corrin, and she is Ballast Stone. This has Slaying, and then after unit acts, if Canto triggers after Canto, she applies Divine Vein Stone, a new effect where you can actually alter the map itself with different effects. She applies to her own space, and then all spaces within 2 spaces of her as well. And then at start of combat, she'll inflict -5 to all stats on the foe, she'll get full null follow-up, and then she'll also reduce damage by 30% during combat, and then she also of course gets Dragon Adaptive damage. Now Divine Vein Stone is essentially the main thing in her weapon, and it's really interesting and powerful. What this essentially does is it makes the space grant defense and resistance +6 during combat. It gives flat damage reduction, like the same kind of flat damage reduction that like Brave Dimitri or somebody else has, but only from specials, by 10 though. This is really good because the current meta is so revolving around specials, so being able to reduce that damage is really powerful. And then it also reduces damage from AoE specials by 50%. So essentially what this will allow Corrin to do is be very powerful in a lot of game modes, as she will be very defensive, right? She has the damage reduction, but most importantly, she can apply a change to the map itself, making it more difficult to get through your team. And this is really going to be powerful on Ether 8's defense, as it can essentially shut down a lot of different ways that the opponent is going to want to engage your team, and just make it really difficult because you're going to have like AoE damage reduction, flat damage reduction, and specials, and everything else. Now the thing is, Corrin does have to act for this to trigger. So I don't know exactly if this means like Corrin has to attack first, or if the foe can attack into Corrin and then it activates as well. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, this seems really powerful. And Corrin has Armored Float, which is really good because that's not pierceable by DR. So she is going to be able to stack pierceable DR with flat DR as well, which is really strong. But then we go to her preference A skill, Realms United, and essentially what this is going to do is give you Distant Counter, inflict -7 to all stats on the foe during combat. You also get an additional 7 flat damage reduction against the foe's first attack, and it also works with Brave hits. So if she gets hit twice by a Brave effect, she'll reduce 7 off each of those hits. This is really strong. Essentially, Corrin just has a ton of ways to reduce damage. She herself is pretty fast. She's rocking 46 speed before any effects. So she's not going to be easy to double, and if she's not easy to double and she has like protection through flat damage reduction, stackable damage reduction, and then also have an effect where she can actually change the terrain to become even more tanky, it's going to be really difficult to kill this Corrin. So I think she's going to be excellent in Ether 8's defense when it comes to game modes. I think that's going to be one of her best game modes. It's possible she's amazing in summoner duels as well. We'll have to kind of test out and see exactly how Divine Vein Stone works to make sure of that, but honestly, this is looking really good already. Corrin also introduces a new B skill, Counter Roar 4. This inflicts attack and speed -4 on the foe during combat. It reduces damage from the foe's first attack by 30%. It works with Brave effects, so she can get on both hits. And then also, her next attack will deal damage equal to 30% of the foe's attack prior to any of the reductions she's going to put on them, which is really good. And then she even gets 7 HP healing after combat. So this is a really cool B skill. I think this is going to be very unique and can be used on a lot of units who don't want to use speed-based damage reduction in their B skill. So units like dragons and possibly beasts if it's inheritable to them as well. This is really cool because there's a lot of units who do struggle to secure kills, and this can give them a lot more firepower. So when it comes to the full package of Corrin, I think we've gotten like a premium save unit essentially right here, who's very fast. She's going to be difficult to double. She's going to be difficult to hurt really. She's going to take a lot of damage, and then she's also going to be able to just throw it back in your face and just pretty much annihilate things. So I think this Corrin's really strong looking. She's probably up there with Bridal Tiki. Bridal Tiki is probably a little bit more defensive, while Corrin will be speedy, right? So she's going to want to win those speed checks. When it comes to roles, obviously Corrin really wants to be a tank. That's her main role. She's a save unit, right? But she does offer support through that Divine Vein Stone effect, and that really can't be underestimated. This is really powerful. Just being able to give all your units defensive res +6, and then also flat damage reduction and AoE damage reduction, like you cannot underestimate that at all. So I think Corrin's going to be a very much a premier far save tank. And so when it comes to game modes that she's going to excel in, obviously it's going to be Ether 8's defense. I think it's going to probably be her best game mode, but I can see her being used in Ether 8's offense as well, because a lot of times in Ether 8's offense, it is easier to stack speed there. So Corrin's going to do really well there, and it's even possible that she shows up in summer duels as well, because we don't know exactly how powerful this effect could be, but it could be pretty broken. Okay, let's move on to Brave Soren. So we have Brave Soren's preference weapon, Archsage Tome. This is going to have Slaying, and then at start of turn, Soren's going to grant attack, speed, defense, and resistance +6, and a new effect called Assign Decoy to his support partner within 2 spaces, or if he does not have a support partner, to an ally with the highest defense within 2 spaces. What Assign Decoy essentially does is it is a save skill that you can assign to a unit, and then that unit will trigger a save based off their range. So if they are a melee unit, they will trigger near save, and if they're a ranged unit, they'll trigger far save. That is absolutely and utterly ridiculously powerful. There are so many things that they've done to limit save skills, and this gets around it completely, right? This is a way to get around, like in Chaos Season, the 1 save rule. You can now have 2 saves. And when it comes to Summoner Duels, you can do the same, right? You could have a far save in one unit, and then you could have a, like let's say you bring Brave Dimitri, and you assign Decoy on Brave Dimitri. Well, now you have a far save and Brave Dimitri protecting your entire team. That is stupidly good. That is ridiculously good. And not only that, it gives them stats too, right? Soren's supporting them with stats. So they're going to be even more powerful. So already, Soren is looking like an insane support unit, like completely ridiculous, and it's also very unique, which is really cool. But that's not all of his weapon. Also, if he's within 3 spaces of an ally, he's going to get plus $5 stats during combat, plus the highest bonus on each stat between allies within 3 spaces. So essentially, like if an ally has a buff of plus 6 attack, and then a different ally has a buff of plus 7 speed or something like that, Soren will just kind of take all the highest ones and get those as bonuses during combat. So it's going to allow him to stack a ton of stats, right? He can get up to 12. Typically, he'll get about 11 if someone is fully buffed within 3 spaces, which is pretty good. And then also, he's going to get a Dragon Wall effect. Essentially, he's going to get damage reduction based off a resistance check, which is cool. So it's going to allow Soren to be a little bit more tanky. But then we have Soren's Preference A skill, Rare Talent. And this is really insane. If Soren's at 25% HP or higher, he's going to get plus $7 stats. He's going to disable adaptive damage during combat. And then he'll also get additional effects based off a resistance check. If his resistance is 1 or higher than the opponent's, he'll get anti-guard. And then if it's 10 or higher than the opponent, and the range equals 2, or Soren initiated combat, he'll get a Brave effect. This is nuts. This is absolutely just super ultra powerful. Like, this makes it so that Soren can actually be a really powerful nuke while also offering ridiculous support. These essentially give 2 of the best effects you want on offensive units, right? You really need anti-guard nowadays. Guard is literally everywhere. Soren being able to get through that guard effect is going to allow him to proc specials very consistently. And then when you combine it with a Brave effect, it's going to make it so that he can proc specials before the foe can even retaliate. This is just an outstanding Preference A skill. I think Soren's going to be a fantastic nuke because of this. But most importantly, he's going to be a fantastic support unit tied in with a nuke, which is exactly what you want in the meta nowadays. Support nukes really stand the test of time nowadays, and so I think Soren's in a great position. But he's also going to introduce a new skill called Flare, which is a new 3 cooldown special, and what it does is if the unit's HP is greater than or equal to 70%, when the special triggers, you'll get 60% of the foe's resistance as damage. So it's like a Glacius almost, but it's based off the foe's resistance, but also it's really cool because it's adaptive. So if Soren's HP is less than 70% when the special triggers, he'll only get 40% damage, so a little bit less than the Iceberg, but he'll heal 30% of his max HP. So what this does for Soren in particular, just allows him to go out, initiate combat, do a ton of damage with a Brave and then a Flare procking, and then if he is low, he can heal himself up. And then if a ranged unit attacks into him and they don't one-shot him, essentially he'll get hit, he'll hit them back with the Flare, heal up his HP, and then he'll even Brave hit them, right, if they're ranged unit. That's really, really, really powerful. So Soren's already looking absolutely fantastic, and that's not even talking about his fodder. So when it comes to the rest of Soren's kit, he actually has Magic No Follow-Up, which was introduced on Haether, and then Times Pulse 4 as well. So Soren just has a very powerful base kit. Like, you could pretty much just take Soren, put like reposition or like some kind of assist skill on him, and he's set, right? He's gonna be able to get through damage reduction, he's gonna have a ton of stats, he has a Brave hit, so he's gonna be able to proc specials very consistently, and then he also offers one of the most powerful support effects we've ever seen introduced into the game. So I would definitely recommend not foddering Soren, even though he is absolutely insane fodder. This unit's just completely busted in my opinion, and it has blew any expectations I had for him out the water. Okay, so let's talk about roles. When it comes to roles, Soren is playing 2. He's playing a support unit, and he's playing a nuke. So he's going to be able to nuke extremely well, like I said, because he can get those specials off very well, thanks to anti-guard and a Brave hit, meaning he can hit twice, right? Times Pulse is going to allow Flare to get down to 2, which is going to help out a ton. When it comes to support, obviously just being able to assign Decoy and giving another unit save effects, right? And you can put it on whatever you want. You can put it on a melee unit, a ranged unit, infantry, armor, whatever you want. That's so ridiculously broken. So I think this unit is just completely stupid. And it's also possible that Soren might be able to play like a ranged nuke role. I'm not sure exactly how well that will work out before we like see all the math, but it's definitely possible. And when it comes to game modes, I think Soren's going to probably be in every single game mode. The only game mode that's kind of questionable for him is Ether Raid's defense because they can't use ally supports, right? So he won't be able to assign a save in Ether Raid's defense, which is a godsend because if he could, it would be completely broken. I wouldn't want to play the game anymore. But he's going to be able to do this in Ether Raid's offense extremely well, especially in Chaos Season now because he can essentially have 2 save units in Chaos Season, breaking that rule that they set. So that's really strong. He's going to be able to be used in summer duels 100%. There's just no way he isn't going to be able to use in summer duels because it's going to make it so that you have a really difficult time breaking your team now. Because you can run a far save, you can assign a near save, and then you can bring Fallen Maria to make sure they don't die. Like, it's really, really scary what he can do. So I absolutely expect to see him in summer duels 100 billion%. Overall, I couldn't be more impressed with Soren. I just think he's completely stupid, and most importantly, he's very, very unique. Okay, next up is Brave Gullveig, and we have her preference weapon, the Cycle's Turn. This enables Canto 1, she gets Slaying, and then if she initiates combat or if there's a bonus active on her, she's going to get plus 5 to all stats, and then she'll get an additional attack and speed plus X during combat. X equals the number of turns times 2. So on the first turn, it'll only be plus 2, but on turn 5, it'll be plus 10, which is pretty insane as you can get, because you'll be able to get plus 15 attack and speed, which is just a ton. She's also going to get 20% true damage based off of her speed, including with AoEs, and then she's going to get full no follow-up. So as a flying unit, I think this is a very solid weapon, right? You're going to get Canto 1, which is going to allow you to be maneuverable. You just get a ton of stats and a ton of damage, which is essentially what you want. And she gets full no follow-up, which is definitely notable as a flying unit because it's not easy to get. And because it's full no follow-up, it actually makes her a lot more tanky too, especially when you consider her new preference B skill, Gold Unwinding. This is going to inflict speed and res minus 5 on the foe during combat, and then at start of combat, if her HP is greater than or equal to 50%, and she initiates combat, she's going to get 60% damage reduction against the foe's first attack, which just makes her extremely bulky and difficult to deal with, though this can be pierced. But the crazy thing is, if she initiates combat, she's going to get a Gale Force. She's going to just get a free extra action. She does inflict gravity on herself and her pair-up cohort, so similar to like Brave Mary Ann, but either way, that's really, really good. And it does have a cooldown of 2 turns. So it's kind of similar to like Legendary Ninians, right? Where you just can't do it every single turn because that would be completely broken. But this is very, very powerful and you cannot underestimate this. And then lastly, Brave Gullveig introduces a new A skill, Flared Sparrow. And what this essentially is going to do is when you initiate combat, you're going to deal 7 damage before combat starts. And this is very important because what this means is that damage reduction will not affect this. Like no matter what kind of damage reduction you have, because it's not during combat, this will always hit for 7, which is definitely not something to sneeze at. Then she's also going to get attack and speed plus 7 during combat, and then she's going to apply a new Divine Feign called Flame on 5 spaces in a line centered on the foe, oriented from left to right for 1 turn after combat. So this is similar to Brave Corrin's, but instead of it being stone, it's going to be flame, and it has a completely different effect. So what this is essentially going to do is it's going to act as difficult terrain for ranged units. So like if a ranged unit like wants to go through it, it's going to take 2 movement instead of 1, which is really, really strong. And also it cannot be ignored by like the Cadian units, right? The Cadian units have like the effect where they can go through difficult terrain. That won't work on this. So that's also something to note. And then also at the beginning of enemy phase, this will deal 7 damage to the foe before they get an attack. This can't kill them, but it can weaken them quite a bit. Notably, also, these Divine Flames do cancel each other out. You can't stack Divine Flames on top of each other, but this is really crazy. Okay, so let's talk about Brave Gullveig as a whole. So essentially what we have is we have a flying blue mage here who's going to be an amazing hit and run unit. She's going to be able to go in, do a ton of damage, probably kill something, apply Divine Flame, making it so it's difficult for you to chase after her, and then she's going to get an extra action, which means she can kill something else and apply another row of Divine Flame. So what this can essentially do is create like a fire barrier between Gullveig and her opponents, which is just horrifying. Because any kind of ranged unit that tries to go after her is probably not going to be able to get through that, right? There's no real ranged unit who's going to have 4 movement to get past that much terrain, right? Because each one of those flame panels is going to cost them 2 movement. So when it comes to roles for Gullveig, it's obviously a nuke. That's what she really, really wants to do. You can kind of consider her a support unit as she is supporting the team by changing the terrain with fire. But really, she's going to be a nuke. She's going to want to go in, she's going to want to kill 1 or 2 things, and then get out, essentially, and then create a wall of fire so the opponents can't get to you. So when it comes to game modes, obviously where she's going to be really, really shine is Ether Raid's offense, right? This is like a perfect hit and run unit. She's going to be able to just jump in, kill something, kill another thing, get out, and then like you could even have the safety fence protect you, and then on another turn you could go in, kill something else, right, and then have the wall of fire protect you. I think this unit will be very strong, The only things we do have to consider, of course, is that as a flying mage, she doesn't have damage reduction piercing. So she might struggle to kill some of the most powerful fire save units in the game. Even so though, I think this is really strong and allow Gullveig to do some crazy plays. When it comes to other game modes, it's possible she's used in summer duels as well because she is a flying unit, which means she can run like Guidance 4 or Soren Guidance, right? Which is just strong. But overall, this looks like a very powerful hit and run unit and a ton of fun, which is really the best part. And she does have a very nice offensive stat line of 59 attack and 47 speed, so she's definitely got a ton of stats to provide that power. And then our final Brave unit is going to be Brave Robin. And Brave Robin's preference weapon is Deliverer's Brand. What this is going to do is grant speed +3, and at the start of combat, if his HP is greater than or equal to 25%, he's going to grant +5 to all stats, reduce damage from the foe's first attack by 40%, gets a full tempo effect, and then also if Robin's max special cooldown is 3 or greater, and it's an offensive special. When his special triggers, it will ignore damage reduction. Now, it doesn't ignore like flat damage reduction or special based damage reduction, but all like the close call 4 effects or like Dragon Wall, it will ignore that. So essentially DR piercing. Then also, if his HP is greater than or equal to 25% and he triggers a Glowing Ember, Bonfire, or Ignis special in particular, he'll get adaptive damage with that special. Then we have Robin's preference C skill, Tip the Scales, and this is where things get really nuts. So at start of turn, if Robin's within 2 spaces of an ally, he'll grant Rally Spectrum to himself and those allies. And Rally Spectrum grants +5 to all stats during combat. And then if units attack can trigger their special, so it's an offensive special, they'll get special cooldown count -X before their first attack. So this is essentially like dual Ike's effect, right? Where like you get special jump, right? Like your special gets to jump forward. This gets past guard, which is really big because guard has become so meta right now. And then X will equal 1 if you can trigger a brave attack. So if you have a brave weapon or you have Biocatrio support, then you'll only get -1 special cooldown. Or if you have Slay. So one of those conditions, you'll only get -1. But otherwise, you'll get -2. So for like Robin, if he's running Bonfire, he'll get -2 special cooldown before he attacks. So Bonfire will be at 1 cooldown, then he can hit them, and then on the next hit, he can like get like Bonfire. Or if it's Ignis, right, it'll go down to 2. He gets hit, he hits, they get hit, and then he like pops Ignis, right? So this is really strong. He can also teleport to any ally with Rally Spectrum within 5 spaces. That's right, 5 spaces warping. That's absolutely absurd. And then he also gets +3 to all stats if he's within 2 spaces of an ally. So this is just some stupidly powerful support. Like, being able to just get +5 to all stats during combat from a buff is already really good. But being able to lower your cooldown that gets past guard is absurd. Like, it's so absurdly powerful. It's going to allow nukes to just hit way, way harder and get past so many effects that they weren't supposed to be able to get past. And then the cherry on top, of course, is just the warping and stats for Robin as well, just allowing him to be even more absurd in combat. But then Robin also introduces a new tier 4 B skill, Gambit 4. And what this essentially does is inflict speed and defense -4 on foe during combat, and then also if the unit or foe's attack can trigger unit special, you get true damage based off your max special cooldown count -2. So let's say you have a 3 cooldown special, it will do 5 true damage per hit. If you have a 5 cooldown special, it will do 15 true damage per hit. So essentially Robin just wants to run like high cooldown specials. But then you also get damage reduction based off your max special cooldown count ×10. So if you're running like a 5 cooldown special, you get 50% damage reduction. But if you're like running a lower cooldown special, like let's say like Ruptured Sky, which is only 2, you'll only get 20%. This is a really cool and unique skill because it's essentially opening up design space to make it so that not every unit needs to have slaying anymore. Slaying has just become so dominant in the meta and just like universal everywhere. If you don't have slaying, you're just weaker than if you would have had it. But now with Gambit 4, there's actually some cool incentives for not having slaying, right? You're getting extra true damage, you're actually getting damage reduction as well. And this is really interesting. Now the real question is, who can use it, right? Who can inherit this? Is it only gonna be infantry again? Or is this gonna be available to like, you know, flyers or like calves or even armors maybe? And also will it be available to like beast and dragons who could really take full advantage of this because they don't have access to like speed-based damage reduction tier 4 B skills, right? So very, very interesting skills. Now let's move on to Robin's roles. And when it comes to roles, Robin has a few he's really doing. First of all, I think he's a support unit, right? Tip the Scales cannot be underestimated. Just getting +5 to all stats during combat is insane, but being able to actually reduce specials without having to like worry about guard or anything like that is bonkers. It's gonna make all your nukes hit way harder. It's gonna allow you to win matchups you just weren't supposed to be able to win. So this is a really powerful support skill. And then the other roles, obviously, Robin can play an Omni tank. He doesn't have all the things you necessarily want for an Omni tank. He does have damage reduction that can stack, but he doesn't have like flat damage reduction, and he can't really take advantage of something like Vital Astra or like Godlike Reflexes as much, because he really wants to use like these bigger specials, right? He wants to pop off with like a Bonfire or Ignis or something like that. So I think that it's not the best role for him. He can do it though if you want to go that role. And then the final role I think Robin can really play is a nuke, right? He's gonna be a melee nuke who can teleport, offer support, deal a ton of damage, and just like pop off big specials when he shouldn't be able to. Robin's kind of absurd when it comes to those kind of things. It's just very interesting because it's not really a role we've had before like this. It's very unique in how they implemented this, and so I'm really excited to see how he works in practice. When it comes to game modes, I think there are a few places you can use Robin. One place is Aether Raid's defense, right? Being able to just give your entire team +5 to all stats and ways to accelerate their specials, right, is really, really powerful. And the crazy thing is Robin can teleport too. So like it can really catch people off guard and they won't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden Robin will just come in and like blow up their Omni Tank or something else and just kind of like get them the win, right? When it comes to Aether Raid's offense, you can use Robin, but I don't really know exactly where you would use him. Maybe as an Omni Tank, but if not that, then there's not really the best places because his weapon doesn't synergize with Gale Force. The special cooldown jump thing that like Dual Ike has doesn't work with Gale Force, so you can't really take advantage of that, which kind of sucks because Robin would be amazing at Gale Force, right? You'd essentially be able to go in within 5 spaces and like teleport in without having to worry about Wings of Mercy, which would just be nuts. But unfortunately, he's not going to be the best at that. He definitely can still do it, right? He has like tempo built into his weapon, but he is lacking slaying, so you're going to have to run like Times Pulse and some other stuff. And then once you start doing that, you start to lose out some of the cool effects that really make Brave Robin unique. And then finally, when it comes to Summer Duels, I think Robin can definitely show up there. Just being able to offer this support is really strong, and the warping as well. Like, it's going to allow him to just be absurd and annoying, and you're always have to be considering what he's going to be doing in every match, which just isn't fun typically. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Let's talk about the other things announced in the Fate Show. We did get announced that our GHB unit is going to be Cyril. Cyril does seem to have a preference weapon, which is cool. I'm not the biggest fan of Cyril, but I don't hate him, so this is cool to see. Glad to see he's in the game. Kind of wish it was like Stefan or somebody else, not gonna lie, but overall, not too bad. The other announcement, of course, is that we are getting an upgrade to the amount of Dragonflowers units can use once again. This happens every single year. Unfortunately, they didn't reduce the amount of Dragonflowers that are required, so once again, you're going to be grinding a ton of Dragonflowers trying to get your main barracks up to speed, but they are going to help that out with a little bit with the Forging Bond, which is going to give 1,000 of each Dragonflower. Okay, let's talk about should you pull. This banner is kind of insane, right? Choose Your Legends comes every year, and now recently we've been getting 4 sparks on Choose Your Legend banners, which means that you're guaranteed value from this banner up to 4 sparks, which is just like 800 orbs or less. That's a lot of value. Now the question though is, are these heroes worth pulling? After all, typically Choose Your Legends heroes do get re-ran a ton, right? They show up on legendary banners typically in December, and they also get ran on like Golden Weeks or in Hero Fest sometimes, so they definitely aren't the most rare hero, but even so, these units are very, very unique. I think this is probably the most unique and powerful Choose Your Legends we've ever received. A lot of the other Choose Your Legends we've gotten are just like a lot of effects just slapped onto units, but with these Choose Your Legends in particular, they are introducing so many new effects that have never been seen in the game ever, right? And because of that, the chance of them changing the meta is drastic. Now, it's difficult to predict exactly which unit will be the one changing the meta, but all of them have unique effects in some way or another, which means that it wouldn't hurt to have one of each of them. Now, that isn't the cheapest thing to do, but fortunately, thanks to the 4 sparks, you can kind of go to the first spark, see how many you get. Maybe you get 1 or 2 there. Maybe go to the second spark, right? And then by then, you should have like maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 of them. And then you could pick the last one as your free pick. And then you could have like the full set. That's one way to do it. The other option, of course, is just try to merge up your favorite. Either way, I think these units are very, very unique, very powerful, and they're all going to affect the game in different ways. And also, because they do get regrounded so much, they are easier to merge up. Now, when it comes to some cons, there is an insane green share on the new Mythic and Legendary banner at the end of the month, and these units will get regrounded like I mentioned earlier. But when it comes to my answer, should you pull? My answer is yes. You should absolutely pull on this banner. This banner is different than any other Choose Your Legends we've ever gotten. All these units are very unique, and I feel like you should at least try to get a couple of them at the very least. Especially because you can choose one for free, which means you can summon first, and then pick whichever one you're missing. At the very, very least, I think everyone should go to 1 spark. I think it's absolutely worth the amount of orbs you're going to get. You can go full circles and only spend 135 orbs thanks to the Forging Bonds, and then you can pick up one for free. Okay, let's move on to the final section of this video, and this is kind of always a fun thing to do at the beginning of Choose Your Legends every year, and guess who is going to be the unit that impacts the meta the most. Now last year I chose Brave Byleth, and it definitely ended up being Brave Seliph, so I kind of missed the mark there, but it's honestly very difficult to tell. and I think it's even more difficult to tell with this batch of heroes. But in my opinion, if I had to guess who's the actual most powerful unit on this banner, I think it has to be Brave Soren. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be calling bias right now because I am a massive Tellius fan, but to be fair, I also don't like Soren all that much, so I don't think I'm actually being biased at all. I think Soren just offers the most powerful, unique support while also being an amazing combat unit. Now, that's not to say the other 3 units are weak by any means. I think all 4 of these units are insanely powerful and are all very unique. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of them become breakout units and just completely take over the meta because of how unique they are. Either way, I'm going to choose Soren as my prediction for the best unit of this banner, and we'll see how well my opinion ages in 1 year. Okay, and with that, that is going to be my coverage for Choose Your Legend 7 right now. We'll definitely be doing more videos on Choose Your Legend 7s once we get a chance to actually pull those heroes and do a lot of testing on them. But now I'd love to hear from you. Who are you most excited about in this banner? Who do you think is the most unique? And which effect that was introduced by this banner are you most excited for? Make sure to drop a comment down below letting me know. And as always, I'd like to thank all my members for all their constant support. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.